Hello, let's talk about your AI strategy generally for when it comes to work, although it also applies to school, to training, getting certifications. In the future, people will be using AI that is recording and able to have the question and the answer when you press the button. So 90% of workplaces, or over 90% of employees in the workplace, are using the same chatbots we've been using for the last 3 years or so from the big few AI labs. And when ChatGPT 5 came out, people were expecting more. The consumers feel that we should be expecting AGI or super intelligence coming around the corner, and a lot of people disappointed that we're not getting the insights that we hope to get from some super intelligence. But that's because these AIs, when you're having a conversation with it, they can only tell you so much. And I'm sure you've had this experience of trying to get something out of the AI, some kind of expert insight, but you have to go back and forth, writing paragraphs. It comes back with 2 pages, 3 pages worth of text. You write some more, and you have to keep correcting it, keep narrowing it down to get better and better answers. And that's because the AI doesn't have your context. Even with features where they have your entire chat history, which ChatGPT has gotten better with, it's still, when you're in action in the world doing something, when you're encountering a new situation or even a workplace situation, it doesn't have the context it needs. And that's something about the models themselves, these AI models, the way that they're trained. Let me pull one up. So the way that they're trained initially is to guess the next word. Something like this. So trained to guess the next word, and if you're writing something like, I need to cook dinner for, what's going to be the next word? Or if you're going beyond just guessing the next word, if you write in here, I need to cook a dinner tonight, what should I cook? Well, it would depend on what led up to that and what your situation is, who else is there, what's the occasion, what do they like, who are your friends. So if it doesn't have these specifics, it's going to give an answer that's going to be hedged, that's going to be most true for the situation. If you're having a dinner and your niece and nephew, who are 3 years old and 4 years old, are coming over, and then their parents might have certain dietary restrictions they're practicing in their family. These are things that the model doesn't know, obviously, until you tell it. But you're not going to get anything that is for you, for that situation, that's really good without putting all of that detail in there. I mean, sounds obvious as I'm saying it, but this is why we are plateauing when it comes to these models. If you're in science, technology, engineering, math, and programming, then you can get the benefit. You're seeing the insights from these models. But when it comes to other things, your day-to-day things or your work situation, whatever you're doing in the office with your customers, collaborating or doing training, these things are generally staying the same because you're not giving it the context. So it's going to hedge, obviously. That's how they're trained. If they give an answer that is too specific to the question, then that's like a wrong answer. And so they are also trained, if you give it more and more context, to be able to give you the specific answer. So they don't have agency, they don't have volition. There's talk about AI agents, which we'll get into a little bit later, but this is the first thing maybe to keep in mind before we talk about implementing AI, your AI strategy at work, and what I think it's going to be in the future. Maybe I'll just jump right to it, is that in the future, the AI is going to hear and it's going to transcribe what you're saying. And then if you are talking to a customer, if you're collaborating, if you're talking on Zoom, if you're in a class, if you are watching a training video, this also can take a screenshot. So let's say, how many more roles can I list if you're dispatching people out from the company? Your role is kind of a secretary at the job, but you're not very technical, and then you're dispatching and scheduling people to come out to work to build a deck. The customer, okay, customer, please, as we're talking, send me some photos of that. And then in your prompt here, you will have the role, who you are, what you need, what the AI expertise should be provided. And then as you take a screenshot there and ask the model a question, then you're going to get your answer. So this will be the future. This is going to be the specific context, loading the model up with context. Even more context would be in here, something called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, embeddings, but we don't have to get technical about it. This is just your history and things that you can load up into the model that the model will have that is specific to you, information specific to you, like your business. If you're building a deck, you'd put out the prices for the deck, the prices per square feet, how far you go in range, maybe the rate. If you're the owner, you would want all that information in there. And then when it comes to customer service, sales, and scheduling and deploying people out into the field to build that and give estimates, ballpark estimates, knowing how many people to schedule, how many texts to schedule to go out. These are things you would put into the files, and then you can also have previous conversations with your staff, between customers. All emails, every email ever sent could fit in here as well. So you would just add those files, and that's how that works. So giving the model more and more context. And then now you're at an advantage. Now you're in a situation where you don't have to come in here, which over 90% of people are doing at work, writing paragraph after paragraph, reading paragraph after paragraph, correcting. No, it's in here already, and it'll depend on your prompt, but you can tell the prompt to get whatever is in question near the end of the conversation. And you can have a conversation here that will go on for 60 hours, 60 hours. And whatever's in conversation, whatever's in question during the conversation, you can ask the AI. That'll come up here. So very obvious to me that this is what it will be in the future. And let's also talk about, if you're on a laptop computer, this will work. The way that it is able to hear the microphone and then get that as text that is input, and then transcribe it, which you can see here in this transcript, things I've been saying into the microphone. It can do that with a locally running AI model. It's not big at all, 150 megabytes, maybe the size of a few albums, maybe the size of a TV show. If you have a TV show file, like one episode of a TV show. So that'll load up. That runs locally. Does really well for the fact that it's a small model, 150 megabytes, and can run on a laptop, not even an expensive laptop. As long as it's not too old, it'll run. And another point about this system audio, if Zoom is running, and imagine this audio is a Zoom call.
Nets came from. Me and Peter decided that was a great name for the hidden layers of neural nets.
Okay. So that's where the other person would come in. And if you don't have phone software on your Windows machine, which I know a lot of you wouldn't, especially smaller businesses, if you can get that iPhone or Android on your Windows 11, if you want to connect this, then that audio will come in over any incoming or outgoing phone calls will happen over your Windows PC on Windows 11. This is called Phone Link. So that's getting you there more. And just some more of my argument of why this is the future, the way to use it, especially, we'll talk smaller businesses. Maybe you're skeptical. You're a smaller business. There's a lot of office work. There's a lot of taking data from the customer over the phone or taking data from emails from different software and extracting certain information there, putting that into a field. And so if you're doing a lot of that, this is going to easily 10x your productivity. And if you happen to use Salesforce, this is integrated with Salesforce. Also, there's a 7-day free trial to use this, and the fee is $14 per seat, flat fee. No additional fees from me to use this Grok model. It's a few pennies per month. So those are the only costs that you're going to experience. And I'll talk about the other, let's pull this up. But here's the all-time cost I've spent on calling this model, which I've called a lot. So 27 cents. But so your other options are going to be much more expensive. There are more features to this, but I hope this is already, what's your AI strategy? I hope that this is compelling enough argument, things I've said, that there's redundancy in the way that we're doing it now. You employees out there using these chat windows. And AI is not going to take jobs. It's not necessarily going to give you superhuman insight, but it's definitely going to bring you the thing in question much faster. Like, let's give an example of a fake email here. And then let's go into the Salesforce CRM. Let's create a new contact with that. Although I do need to come in here and make sure I don't have one already. Just give me a moment to clean this up a little bit. So do you need an AI strategy? Maybe let's talk about that first. When the internet was new, you saw these newspapers, actual newspapers with newsprint saying that people are going to still want real journalists, they're going to still want a real paper with newsprint paper. They're going to want their deliveries. And the reason that people are able to deny the faster, better, more effective 10x in technology is because, for one, they're scared of the competition. They're scared of having to learn the new thing, although I think I've just covered everything here and it's fairly easy. And they also you don't like to be forced or have to adapt and learn something new. A lot of your salary and your sense of self and accomplishment will tend to be wrapped up in the role you're doing now and the tools that you're using now. So then when something comes along that makes you and everyone else around you much faster, much better, much cheaper, much less friction, much lower cost, people can dig in their heels and make lots of arguments. You see it all the time that AI is a bubble, AI is hype, AI is plateaued, but it will continue. It's not going anywhere. It's going to get better and better. And the way to think about it is a bit like the wheel. This is like the reinvention of the wheel itself, and really thinking about what the wheel did for us using animals, probably, using things like ropes, oxes and horses and humans to pull on ropes to move things around, or for people to just carry things on their back. So once we had the wheel, what that enables is, from the time starting now to the time we want the thing to happen, like the delivery or the movement of something, that time happens faster. So now the time that you want an answer, or the time that you want the data extracted from over here and moved over there, that happens faster. So it is a way of putting wheels on the thing in the future and bringing it to you sooner. And that's a bit like what it was before writing was invented. We had to find the wisest person. Then when we had writing, then you had to go to the people with the writing on the expensive papyrus or the certain clay, or the people that had those writings memorized. Then we got the printing press, and that was even more distributed, giving you that information that you sought. And of course, these next evolutions in industry are coming faster and faster. So then, of course, everyone switched from paper to digitizing everything. And then we put all of that on the internet. So now the next step, of course, even Google knows that when you are looking for something, they return an AI now. AI response generated just to give you that thing faster. Even though all of this stuff down here is part of what Google was built on and the entire business model of the internet, like a lot of these websites, hoping that you'll click on them so that Google can place ads on them. But you have this creative destruction happening here where the demand is not that you're forced to use something because it has hype or because it's trendy or because it is something that a lot of people are throwing a lot of money at. It's just the fact that there's less friction, there's less cost, and it brings it to you faster and cheaper, kind of like the wheel. So reduces the redundancy, reduces the friction. You know, there's uncertainty, there's redundancy, there's friction. If you're to click in here, you're already spending more time than you would have if you just got the answer instantly from an AI model. And if you're in here talking about your work, even if you load this up, even if it knows some previous conversations, it doesn't have that hour-long conversation. Or if you are scheduling something, you can't have the live scheduling happening here. I mean, this does have a voice mode, but it's going to be, you've used it before. You can't use the voice mode and have a conversation on the side and then turn to the voice mode. So that's why this exists. That's why I made this, and I hope it's valuable. But the reason we're doing this is that there's redundancy in getting the intelligence into your workplace here by using this. Whereas if you're using this, if it's recording the conversation, if you have things pertinent to your question on the screen, you don't have to double back and expend more energy. You are expending effort, you're expending energy, you're doing some effort talking to people already. And then when something comes into question, you don't want to pause the conversation, put a burden on the person you're talking to, putting them on hold, or just not knowing the answer, or getting someone else who then the caller has to explain their rigmarole about why they're calling. No, you can just have the answer here already. So doing this elimination of redundancy is what integrating the AI into the workplace will be. So that's where we're at now, and I think of it a bit like the old-timey bicycles. This is the way they thought bikes would be when they invented them. Getting up on this bike, the cost and the friction of getting up. How do you even get going when you're getting onto one of these? How do you get started without falling over? Falling over is going to be a much higher cost than falling off of one of these. Stopping, of course, whether you're stopping unexpectedly or stopping when you do expect to stop, that's going to be tricky as well. So the cost, danger, and risk of injury, that's like cost. It's not quite the same as retyping a conversation into a chat window, but it's still cost. It's still a burden. So obviously they should put the reason they made them like this is because they couldn't conceive of the chain on the pedals going to one of the wheels. So they took that pedals off one of the wheels, off both of the wheels actually, put it on the back wheel. And luggage, did you know, even though we had the plastic to put wheels on luggage since, when were plastics widely used? The 60s, definitely the 70s. I'm sure they could have had metal, wheels on luggage back before airports were even invented, but we didn't get wheels on the luggage until the 90s. You didn't get this kind of, this claims to be a 80s style brand, but nothing like this existed in the 80s. There were no wheels on luggage in the 80s with the handle. So looked more like this. This is a real 80s piece of luggage. And people would walk there at least a mile through an airport with that. So that's the wrong form, doing it wrong. Not a way to use the wheel, the technology. So hope that's clearing that up. You could find this app here at stratamus.com, spelled this way. Strata MOS, free trial for 7 days. And you just log in there. We're not in the spyware business. We're not in the selling AI business. We're in the business of putting the AI out there and you paying a flat fee of $14, and then you emailing us when you want us to integrate more things. So that's the plan. And so there is Salesforce integration, which we'll show here. Clear that. But then I want to build more. I want to hear from you what other data, like here's this fake email on screen. So we'll see if that can extract the information. Even though my screen is very large here, a lot of other stuff happening on screen there. It knew from the prompt that it should be looking for something like what I had on screen. Intelligent already, right? And it extracted those fields. Human in the loop here. So you're seeing before you send it off into your Salesforce database, sending that out. Author is authorized there. Going into Salesforce usually needs a minute or two. You'll see the new record down here when Salesforce shows it, and then there is all that information there. So hopefully you use Salesforce, and this will save you 10x, a lot of time, a lot of added productivity, I hope. But that's not all. This is just the beginning. My project here with this is to keep adding in here. We were able to send that to Salesforce through the CRM tab. If you want me to build in other CRMs, I can do that here. And then another tab. What else would you like me to build? So if you need something like Jira or Google Calendar, I can add tabs for those. I can integrate that. And then you'll enter your whatever that key is for this software to be integrated into your account. I don't need access to your account. I mean, you enter these things and you control them on your side. This is not something that runs in the cloud or runs in some kind of browser. This is something that runs locally. So all of these keys are stored locally under something called app data. And maybe I could find it. Yeah. So, and then if you're in a large organization and you don't want your employees to have access to this stuff, your Grok key, the software license for this, the Salesforce client ID, this is something here that you can just put behind a password and then create one of these keys for each one of your employees, and very safe. So there is what you have shown on the screenshot and the conversation that is being sent off to Grok. So anything that you wouldn't want Grok to know, some, I don't know, probably social security numbers if you have those. But we've been giving our data out to Google and Facebook and these other people for 20 years. I think the biggest fear might be that they would sell your leads to your competitors, right? I mean, what else would you really care about other than HIPAA law if you're in a specific, type of industry? If you're in law, if you're a lawyer, if you're in the government, of course, there's, I'm sure, laws exposing that information to Grok or certain data. But for the most part, your information, even your clients, have you ever heard of Facebook or Google or OpenAI finding companies' competitors and selling them leads, the Glengarry leads, the good leads to competitors? I mean, I don't know your business, but I would assume that would be your worst fear. But yeah, I don't think stuff like that really happens. So you're going to have to, what do we say earlier about cost and benefit? So that's just a little bit of a cost that you are exposing that. But it's been the same thing with Google. When you're at work, how many Google searches are your employees doing? How many Google searches are you doing? Do you think they can infer who a client is? Google has access to your Gmail. All of these companies see all of your company emails. So put it in perspective, the fact that you're calling a model. We here at Stratamus, at Kiru, like I said, this runs locally. So there's no questions and answers and queries leaving your local instance of this app. It's only going to Grok. I assure you, we at Stratamus are not interested. We're not in the business of training. We don't have venture capital that put money into this application. So therefore, there's no pound of flesh they're looking to extract from this company and its clients. So the only exchange here, the offer is $14 a month and an endless build out of new third-party apps for this to connect to. And let's see what else I have covered. So the reason, and this will get into your other options, as I spoke about the venture capitalists and other AI integration software you might choose out there. So those are going to be venture capital backed for the most part. They're going to have sales teams. They're not going to tell you the price. We tell you the price here. 7-day free trial, $14 flat fee. And unless something dramatically changes, unless there's a drastic change in the kind of intelligence that we would want to offer or be able to offer, or this project changes, there's no plan for the project to change. The project is to just keep adding as clients come to the app and tell me what they want, what else they want for us to build here, then those will be added. And if you contrast that to the other software companies that have venture backing, that have a sales team, that don't tell you the price, that try to feel you out and get as much as they can from you, and also, most importantly, charge for the RAG, charge extra for the Salesforce integration. And I haven't even mentioned the fact that you can connect this up to your own applications. As I went into, I can keep building, what do you use? Linear, whatever your phone system is, you can build these things yourself. Agentic workflows, calling other models for deeper research. Things can get, in the world of integrating AI into the workplace, things can become very elaborate. And that's not for you to start. I mean, that's something for you after you have the eyes and ears, and the initial model. If there's something that's still missing, explain that situation to an LLM, or you can even speak about it into here and then ask the AI with the right prompt. Should I add N8N, tool calling, reasoning models, deep research models, models to take actions, agents to take actions? And if that's you, if that's something that you want to get involved in yourself, or even start an AI agency and go out and have this as the initial eyes and ears, and then build things, integrate it with this, these are also things you can do. But let's call this as a demonstration for what these do in case you're not familiar. We're just going to do an ask here. So we're still in the Salesforce mode. Doesn't have a name, last name, first name, but let's actually create 1. Clear the transcript. So, new customer, first name is Jeffrey, spelled Geoffrey. Last name is Hinton, Hinton. And his email is jeffreyhinton@skynet.com. His phone number is 123-123-123. His title is AI Godfather. He's from the Department of AI Intelligence. And the description is that he needs more computers. Give him your computers and more energy. So, stop recording that. So this would be, as I showed before, last time we extracted the text from the text on the screen for our fields. And now we're going to call this route, which you could also call with software. But we're just going to call it. And there is our JSON there. Are we in AI Salesforce mode? Because that was a very interesting response. Yeah, there we go. So that interesting. Even though it responded with different things in addition to this is called a JSON object, which when one piece of software is sending data to another piece of software, you know this by getting it, if you've ever worked with someone on the phone, getting their first name, last name, email, getting this information, that it's going into a field. That's because the software uses a field, but when we extracted that, it didn't need to, it didn't throw it off that it had more than the JSON. So it was able to send this JSON object. Let's see how that came through. Just need to refresh this. It might take a minute. Yeah. So there we go. You know, how can you not use this? I know that there are tens of millions of people out there not using this. It's only $14. It will pay for itself in the first 2 hours of use. But, yeah, it is the best option. What else was I talking about? The RAG, the alternatives. So this software is your best option. Like, let's say you're doing training, you're in school, you're trying to get a certification, and you need a study. You know, some of these are a little vague, but let's see if we can guess the answers to this. If you're training, if you just want the answers, if you want the study answers or the test question answers or the job interview answers, this gives it to you. And you could also tell it to give you a clue, of course. A little bit of a clue, a little bit of a stepping stone, step up in between to help you. But what does it say the answer is? It thinks the best answer is D. That seems kind of obvious. But was it the right answer? Huh. I guess not. Why did you choose D as what you thought was the best answer here when it's saying that the answer is B? You thought changing the password? Under what circumstances would changing the password? You know, I don't like this question and answer. What do you think of this question and answer? If your Wi-Fi network is being utilized, you need to change the answer right away. Right? Yeah, change the password. Silly example. Let's see if it gets this. Let's clear this transcript. It likes the answer B here. And that is the correct answer according to the test. So why not? What do you think about the ethics of using this during a job interview and then continuing to use it after this gets you the job at work? I mean, you're going to be the star employee at work if you're using this, right? Dealing with customers, dealing with clients. But I made the point there. We talked about how this is the best option for this type of AI software. And when there is a bit of software you're trying to send data to, if I don't have that, I will add it. And it's going to be there for everyone else to use. And it's going to be there for you to use for no additional fee. And also, if you compare that to another software provider, they're going to charge additional for any of these fees. And then your other option might be going to a development shop, programmers, some local custom software building programmers doing the AI agent thing. And that's going to cost you. That's going to be a hefty price tag, which something they might do, something they might recommend is downloading all the emails from your history of your company, all text messages, all other info, having that stored someplace so you're paying for the storage, and then you're having agents, getting the agents to search for answers in those emails, in those text messages, which I think is a bit silly. Didn't we talk about redundancy? I showed the picture of the bike with the giant wheel. I showed the picture of the luggage with no wheels on it. That's a bit overkill. That's a bit redundant. So building custom software around your email system and your text messages that deploy agents, and the agents are doing chain of thought reasoning. The agents are hitting the model. An agent is just another way of a model being called, like this happening here. Like if I was to click this 10 times, click it 10 times, get a certain response, click it another 10 times. That's basically what an agent is. And, well, the term agent is fairly flexible, but an agentic workflow into your AI tools, having those as your tools and having that go over your emails, you could just put the emails in here. And then when you have something in question, especially if you explicitly ask your prompt, if it's part of your job, to consider previous emails, looking up previous customers, or extracting Salesforce data. I don't know how to do that, but I'm sure you can export all your Salesforce contacts and having the model look at it in here. Even though there's not a danger of duplicate Salesforce, it's possible, but there are guardrails in place to prevent duplicate contacts from being entered by Salesforce themselves. If that was something you needed, all your Salesforce contacts could be in here. All your Salesforce cases, all your Salesforce leads could be in here. And then whatever the situation is, whatever you need, whatever you're calling on, that could happen in here to your role and what you need from that information. You don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars to build custom software at the email server here or the email files here or hosting the emails on a file over there, having software called over there and moved over here. No. We're going to eliminate redundancy. We're going to do this. We're going to build this. We're going to do this once. And it's going to be the best. And it's going to be a low fee. And that's going to be the project. But they will, if they do build that for you, you're going to be locked in. When it's time to upgrade the model, that's going to be a cost. That's going to be a fee. Their time is not going to be free. I don't think anyone is installing these elaborate, brittle custom workflows and then coming in and upgrading it and maintaining it for free. I don't think it works like that, but we have two models to choose from. This is the one that works with the RAG, with your files. This is very as smart as any other model. When people talk about models plateauing, this for 99.9% of questions and answers is just as good as GPT-5 or the other models. But the point is, upgrading an agentic workflow that an AI agency builds in, it's going to be costly. Whereas with this, updating, upgrading, as we do get to AGI and superintelligence, you're just going to come in here and check for an update. When there is an update, you'll download it, and the model will be in here, and it's just going to be that simple. And then instead of having some agents crawling up and down, calling the model at your expense, maybe a cheap model, maybe an expensive model. Instead of that, you're just doing your work. You're just doing what you do, looking at emails, asking the AI, sending the data from here to there, and getting the force that you're applying already, getting that force multiplied. Although you might call it effort. Doing work, we can agree that it is applying effort. So having that effort multiplied and having things happen when they happen, when you need them, and other pitfalls to look out for. Oh, that was 29. It's now 14 because I'm able to get a few more customers and make it work for 29. But so ignore the 29 number. But those custom agentic workflows I just went into, I don't know if other ones are still going to companies. Something else, as I talked about, all the text messages, all the employee manuals, all the regulation, all those employee emails, all the open tickets, closed tickets. They might even fine-tune a model on all of those things. And that's something that's even worse than building in custom software. At least if you spend 5 or 6 figures on a custom agentic workflow, it's going to work. It's going to bring you productivity. Fine-tuning a model, not so much. Fine-tuning a model is very hard. It's very expensive. Getting the computers reserved that you need to train a model, to fine-tune a model, the expertise, there's electricity costs. It can go on for weeks or more when you're training a model. And people really do this. I hope it's not as popular as it used to be because it's really not a good solution. We talked about some costs at upgrading and how simple it is, the future-proofness of this software. if you fine tune a model, that's fraught with peril, fraught with costs, probably not going to work very well. Anyone who's really good at training these models, they're working here. They're making tens or hundreds of millions of dollars working here. You probably can't afford to get a really good model trained, and you don't need one. You need the context and a fairly good model that can give you the answer. So giving it as much context as possible. And that's another point about custom workflows, custom software. They're going to point the different models at different narrow parts of your workflow. So you might be on a call with someone. They might build into your workflow. The AI agency might build in something that transcribes calls, but that's going to be pointed there. It's not going to be as flexible. You can't then take that transcript and then also have an email on the screen and also have their emails in RAG and then having in the prompt consider all the emails from the customer in the past history. And then, so not as flexible as the point. And then when you don't have the flexibility, because how can I describe it for the non-technical? Like something more like this, where you have an agent looking at the mail. Then you have whole nother model extracting here and seeing if data is valid here. These two models don't know what the other one is doing. So that's a rough way of describing it. But the custom software installations, the custom work is redundant and not effective because it's not getting the full context. So then you could have that entire conversation you've had in memory, other conversations, other emails loaded up, and then taking a screenshot, or I don't know, is your client in the news? Is your client in any way producing any other possible information that might come across your screen? So then you're able to point this same collection, amalgamation of all of this different information and get that into the context window as well. Like I said, the context window can take 60 hours of conversation. And this is what I offer here. So $14, not $29 a month. And that's something that just comes through automatically. No sales team to deal with. And open to any suggestions. Ideally, I could start building every other popular software. I know Salesforce is somewhat popular, so I added them first. But I could continue to build, but I may as well do that as I hear from more customers and what they want integrated. And that will be my to-do list of most commonly used by the clients of this software. And then we'll be set. We'll be ready for the AI to give us that productivity, to give us those things that we want to happen in the future. If the future is 30 seconds or 1 hour, whatever that thing is, we can make it happen much faster. And I could continue to brainstorm here. I don't know if that would be helpful, but do you want something here that gives you your checklist? Are you talking to people on the team that is doing things, that needs to list priorities, follow up with this, follow up with that? taking notes, creating a list of tasks and events. You can put that in here. Are you in sales, but you want to be more technical? Maybe you're new to the company you're working at. Hopefully your company has this and you're not as technical as you could be because you're more well-versed at sales, better at sales techniques. But you need those technical answers when you need them during the course of a conversation or when the client is sending you the screenshot. And if you give that to the prompt, and then when you ask, you're going to get a perfectly tailored response. Kind of a fairly long response, but you can get it to respond with 10 words, 1,000 words. Very accommodating. And then vice versa. Maybe you're the technical person. Maybe you're the engineer, the person who is not a people person, but then you are in a role where you're dealing with customers more. And if it's time to implement a certain sales technique, I don't know, do they have different techniques like there are moving you along at like a certain phase of the sales process, whatever that is, that sales approach, write it in here. You're technical, but you don't have the sales experience or the sales expertise, then the model is going to know that too. It's going to give you the right response for that. So it goes on in different ways. If you want to use this in a way where you want to connect this to your phone calling software, I'm sure, especially if you're a larger company, maybe you don't have it, but larger companies, of course, have something more than the phone link system. They have their own software that you can send and receive phone calls from, right? So when a phone call starts, do you want that software connected in a way that it starts transcribing? When the phone call ends, queries the AI, saves that transcript, clears it, and then when the next outbound or inbound call happens, start it over, saving all those, exporting those, and then get another model, or maybe even load that up into another instance. All of those calls, all of those reviews of the calls, having those in here. And then when it's time to talk about who was the best, who is employee of the month, who should get the raise, who needs more coaching when it comes to customer service, the productivity, the insights, the intelligence. Clearly obvious that this is the way to do it. So this can do so much more than a chat window, that a chatbot can do. I mean, 4 years ago, just the idea that we would be talking to a chatbot that was not human, that could give us answers, was totally out of the question. And now that we are relying on them for real world things, I hope I've made the point, hope I've made that clear, that giving it more context is going to be the future. You may as well do it now. People who resisted getting computers in the 70s and 80s eventually got computers. People who didn't have websites and weren't having an online presence, dealing with email in the late 90s, early 2000s, it would be out of the question that you could have a business like that. I mean, you would be in demand and have a very special type of business. Very few people. And this is going to do even more. This is going to unlock even more, even if you're not using it with customers. You know, the Joe Rogan meme, the Jamie pull that up thing. any situation where you're in I need to pull this up. I wonder if this has links. Let me try that. There's that YouTube video of that Viking doing some kind of there's a YouTube video of that Viking doing some kind of techno dance, and it was in Germany, and we're gonna need to see the video of that. Do you happen to have the URL or a URL to that YouTube, or at least tell me how exactly I could find that? Techno Viking. So from a generally vague description, that's pretty good. It probably doesn't have the links because links are dying all the time, but I'm sure if that was something you were doing often and really needed, you could call another model. Like, this is just the eyes and ears and an initial first response from a model. But if you wanted to then call another model, I bet Gemini, Google's model, would give you the link, like sending the transcript out to another model to get that link. And so for most of you, I'm sure coding would be out of the question, but if you did want to get into it, get started and build something like that, something simple, if you're learning, that's okay. Best advice on learning how to program or build custom tools, because I will be building things for you if you're a client, especially if you email me, especially, but I'm not going to build something that calls another model that gets a YouTube video, YouTube links returned. But that is something you could build. There are different models that you could call that would return the link. And so point is, the way that you learn to build things like that is you just set a goal. Maybe you don't really need the YouTube links, but if you set a goal that you do, I need the transcript to be sent to a model, to be saved, extracted. Just tell ChatGPT where you're at. How much do you know? I know no programming, although I have this route here, this endpoint, this one that calls this program when it's open, and it gets a bit of text describing a YouTube video. What model should I call this with? What's reliable that will return the link? And then this is going to tell you you're going to set up some middleware server to run locally, and then you're going to call another model, and it's going to be there up and running much faster than you think. So this is the era to not be subject to people building the agentic workflows and the custom AI software, especially while you're young, because this is going to be the future. I mean, if you're older too, why not learn? Make yourself future-proof and super productive as well. And so that's going to be the future. I'm sure of it. And like I said, I brainstormed a little bit some of the things that you could be doing. But your domain is what matters. You know your domain better than anyone. Meeting with a custom software developer and trying to rack your brain about what you really do. I don't even know really what I do. What finger do I press the letter M with on the keyboard? It's like you don't really know till you're in the context, till you're doing it. So intelligence and action happens in the context. Work, productivity happens with other people. And that's what this is built for. So I hope whether you use this or not, maybe you'll keep it in mind. There's no need to enter any credit card, no strings attached. I'm not in the business of collecting data, doing anything with your email address, but it does require an email address to sign up so that one person per email can get the free trial. And or how many ever emails and devices you have, each of those get a 7-day free trial. And so having that, setting that up, seeing how that goes, emailing me how it went right here. And I hope it prepares you for the future. The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. And then maybe you'll keep me in mind. Maybe you don't want to use this at your work. Maybe you want to consider the possibility of going to local businesses and selling them on this idea, and then building something like that very custom solution I was talking about, like a custom solution of getting a YouTube link. Maybe your business needs that. That's something I can't really add into this. I mean, maybe I could, but it would be a lot of work for a very niche need. But that's the business. That's your business or local businesses. And so we're gonna work on this. We can get through this together, this big AI revolution. It's very real. It's not something you can hide from any more than a business could hide from having a website, an email, an online presence. So more productivity in the future. That's good. More insights, more intelligence. And the future looks bright. So thank you.